All right, you guys. I like that little game warm-up. It helped you get to know me. It helped me get to know you a little bit. Like you heard earlier, I am from Chicago. I think Chicago is the best city in the entire world, and I'll fight you on that. It's fine. I saw somebody wearing a Bulls jersey yesterday, so wherever you are, 23, Gold Jordan. I don't know who it was. But yeah, I think you should know a couple things about me before we get started. Like I said, I'm from Chicago. Second thing about me, I'm actually an introvert. I'm not gonna make all the introverts in the room raise your hand because none of us wanna do that. But I know that you're here, and I see you. But here's what I want you to know. I'm an introvert, but I also really love making friends, and I'm gonna be here over the next couple of days. So if you see me around, if you see me walking, if you see me at a meal, if you see me like during free time, please come up and say hi. Tell me your name, tell me something cool about yourself. I would really love to get to know you while I'm here. So please come say hi. So there's a couple things about me, but while we get started, I wanna tell you a couple things that I know about you. I wanna tell you a couple things I know about you. The first thing I know about you is that being in high school is hard. And I don't mean like, oh yeah, it's hard, like you're in high school. I mean, I actually think that being in high school today is the hardest it has ever been to be in high school. Like every generation goes through their own thing that makes it hard or unique, but I think what you're experiencing in high school today is actually unprecedented compared to any other generation. The amount of change that you're experiencing, the amount of hard things you encounter in the world, I think what you're experiencing in high school is unique, and I wasn't in high school at the same time that you're in high school, and so I don't fully know or understand what your experience is, but I want you to know that I see you in that. I've talked to a lot of you at this camp, but also in some of the work that I do with high schoolers. I know how difficult high school is. But the second thing I really know about you is that I think you guys are the most creative and innovative generation. Like, you guys have so many cool ideas. You have such an ability to make things happen. You have tools, you have resources, and when you're inspired to make a difference in the world, you absolutely do. And I think that's so cool because those two things combined means that you're set up to be able to create so much change in the world. And so in 5 years, and 10 years, and 20 years, I can't wait to see what you do, what you come up with. But here's the third thing that I know about you. You guys ask really good questions. And you're asking really big questions, really important questions right now about God, about life, about spirituality. Last night at dinner, I was sitting with a couple of you. I was sitting with Tess and Kiera and Michaela. See you guys. And we had this great conversation about questions. And it just reminded me of the big, wild, crazy questions that you have as high schoolers. Questions like, does God see me? Questions like, is God really good? And questions like, hey, well, if God is supposed to be good, well, then why are there bad things that happen in the world? Seems unfair. So here's the tension that we find ourselves in this morning. Yesterday, Pastor Megan was here, and Pastor Megan, she talked about our posture before Jesus. Remember, she talked about that cup? And she talked about how, hey, when you have the right posture before Jesus, that you're able to be filled up by the power of God, and then that actually overflows into the world around us. That's our posture. But what I love about that image is it actually really describes what I would say that Jesus describes as life to the full. There's a passage in John chapter 10 that says this. It says, this is Jesus talking. Jesus says, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come, Jesus himself has come, so that they can have life and life to the full. And so when Pastor Megan was talking about the overflow, it's the overflow of that life to the full that Jesus offers. But here's the tension. Why, when Jesus offers us this life to the full, does it feel like we encounter so much darkness, so much hardship, so much pain and sorrow in our world. Why is life that's supposed to be to the full, why is it so dark? And I don't have to tell you, you know, the world is a crazy place. The political unrest that we see in this country and around the world is really scary. But that's out here. That's not even including what's happening and represented in this room. I know so many of you are battling every single day with your mental health, with suicidal ideation, with ideas of self-harm. So many of you know somebody, have lost somebody to suicide. So many of you are battling through relational issues, whether that's in your friend group, with your family. Maybe your parents have been going through a divorce, and you're experiencing such a sense of darkness right now. Some of you are wrestling through the loss of a dream because you didn't make that team, or you didn't get the grades you needed. You're not going to the school that you wanted. I mentioned earlier, I work a little bit with high schoolers at my church, and one of my girls, she's going into 11th grade. Her name is Ava, and last year she tore her ACL playing soccer, and she's like a phenomenal soccer player. Like since the time she was 3 years old, playing soccer, and she tore her ACL, and for the entire year she was not able to do the thing that she felt like she was supposed to be doing, and she was just so lost in the middle of that. Like, why did that happen to me? So here's the thing, you guys. This morning, we're going to wrestle with a question. And the question is this: if we really believe that God promises life, and life to the full, well then, what do we do in a world that is really, really dark? So, we're going to dive into our scripture. Yesterday, Pastor Megan kicked off Psalm 23, and she started with the first 3 verses. And so I just want to read them just so that we kind of have like a level set of where we're all at, because I wasn't here, so indulge me for a minute. Psalm 23, 1-3 says this: "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He lets me rest in grassy meadows. He leads me to restful waters. He keeps me alive. He guides me in proper paths for the sake of his name." And then we get to verse 4. And verse 4 is where we are going to camp out for the rest of this morning. So let's look at verse 4. Psalm 23:4 says this: "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they protect me." Here's what I want you to notice. Notice how that line starts. It says, even when I walk through the darkest valley. Here's what I want you to hear today, you guys. God's not surprised by the darkness that you're experiencing. Like, the darkness doesn't catch God off guard. Jesus is intimately aware of the fact that there is evil in this world and that it's hard. But more than just like being aware that bad things happen and that you're experiencing pain and experiencing darkness in the world, there are different passages in the Bible that actually tell us that when God hears about the pain that we experience, that it actually breaks his heart. That God actually weeps over the pain that we experience. That God gets angry about the injustice that we face. Darkness, it doesn't surprise Jesus. Darkness doesn't surprise Jesus because Jesus, although he was fully God, when he came to the earth, he became fully human. And because of that, he actually took on all of the same experiences that you and I have experienced. Jesus was your age once. Did you know that? Jesus had the same type of experiences in a human body that we do. Jesus, he was betrayed by his friends. Jesus, he had a friend that he lost that actually died, and he wept and he grieved over the loss of that friend. Jesus experienced tremendous physical pain on the earth. Jesus has an intimate knowledge of the pain and the darkness that we experience because he was with us. Darkness, it doesn't catch God off guard. He is well aware of the fact that at some point in your life, you're going to experience the darkness. That's why the psalmist says, even when I walk through the darkest valley. But thankfully, the psalmist doesn't stop there. The psalmist says this, even when I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. I fear no danger because you are with me. Did you know that darkness cannot overpower light? That no matter how dark it gets, that no matter how vast the darkness is, that if there's a light present, you will always be able to see it. Did you know that? So picture this. This is your life sometimes. This is how it feels. Dark. Surrounded. And in the middle of the darkness, we can feel alone, overwhelmed, anxious. And yet, no matter how dark the darkness gets, you're always able to see the light. And you know what's pretty wild? Throughout the Bible, there's a person who's actually described as the light in the darkness all the time. Any guesses on who it is? We're going to put it up on the screen. There's a verse in John, and it says this. It says, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Here's what I want you guys to hear. Even when you're surrounded by darkness, even when it feels like you're overwhelmed, you're anxious, you're being overwhelmed, overcome by the darkness in the world, Jesus is present with you in the darkness. Verse 4, it finishes by saying this. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no danger because you are with me, your rod and your staff. They protect me. See, the reason why we don't have to fear the darkness is because of the presence of Jesus. But even more than that, Jesus actually promises to protect us in the middle of the darkness. Jesus promises his presence, but he also promises protection. And in this verse, they describe it as the rod and the staff. And I'm not a shepherd. I don't know if we have any shepherds in the room, but let me give you a little history context here. In the ancient times, if you were a shepherd, you'd be like out in the middle of nowhere with all of these sheep. And your job was to make sure that the sheep were protected, but also to get the sheep where they needed to go. So you needed to get them to a green pasture, or get them to water, or get them to the market. But you also needed to make sure that the wild animals wouldn't attack the sheep. And so you'd carry two things with you. You'd carry a rod and a staff. And the rod, it was specifically used to guard the sheep. So if there was a wild animal that would come, the shepherd would use the rod to actually beat that animal and make sure that it didn't attack the sheep. It would guard the sheep. And then the shepherd had this staff too, and the staff was specifically used to guide the sheep. I don't know if you know this, but sheep are really stupid. Sheep will run off a cliff if you don't stop them from doing that. And so the shepherd would actually need something to make sure that the sheep knew where they were going. And so the staff was something that the shepherd would use to help guide the sheep so that they know where they were supposed to go. The shepherd guards and guides. And here's the thing, Jesus, he promises to guard and guide you through the darkness. God's presence and his promises of protections will guard and guide you through all of the dark experiences that we have in the world. Because the thief has come to kill, to steal and destroy, to take away the life that Jesus has offered you, but Jesus comes so that you can have life even in the middle of the darkness. We all have these big questions about life, about God. And I think sometimes when we get stuck on a question, when it feels like we just are not getting an answer, I think sometimes it can actually be helpful to rephrase our question. And so I wonder if the question that we really need to be asking when it comes to how do we live this life to the full in the middle of the darkness, I wonder if the question that we actually need to be asking is, how does God respond to me in the middle of darkness? Because I know that God is there. He's promised his presence. How does God respond to me in the middle of darkness? Darkness is inevitable in our lives. It doesn't catch God off guard. Jesus is not surprised by the darkness. We know that Jesus' presence is with us in the darkness and that he guides us through the darkness. So here's the bottom line. We can find protection in the presence of Jesus, even in the midst of our darkness. When I was in high school, I had really bad anxiety. I'm sure a couple of you guys can probably relate to that. And actually, as I was growing up, when I was a little kid, I had really bad separation anxiety from my parents. And so I couldn't even get on a school bus without having a full-on anxiety attack. I was so afraid to be away from my parents. And then somewhere around middle school, I kind of worked through it and it felt like I was in a better place. And then in high school, something happened to me. And right around age 16, all my anxiety came back. And I remember laying in bed late at night, in the darkness, being so anxious about my life, about the future. I had all these big questions, and I would just lay in bed, and I would cry, and I would pray and ask God. I was kind of yell at God sometimes, actually, why is this happening to me? I don't know what to do. And eventually I got to a place where the only thing I could actually say was, Jesus, I need you here. Jesus, I need you here. And I would lay in bed and I would repeat that actually out loud over and over again. Jesus, I need you here. Jesus, I need you here. And it was through the continual refocusing of my attention on the light in the middle of my darkness I became so sure, so confident that no matter what darkness I experienced, Jesus was there with me. So here's what I want to ask you tonight, this morning. Where are you looking? Where are you looking in the middle of your darkness? We all are experiencing it. What is giving you hope? What is giving you assurance? What is giving you confidence that you will be able to move through the darkness protected? And if it's not the presence of Jesus, I wonder how long you'll really be able to stay confident in that. Where are you looking? Will you pray with me? God, the world can feel like a pretty wild place sometimes. A place with so much pain, so much brokenness, so much darkness. And yet you promise to be the light in the midst of the darkness. You promise to be the one who will shine in our darkness, who will give us life to the full. So God, I pray over these students right now, God, as they are wrestling through their own darkness, as they are navigating through the things that are hard and scary and painful in this world, God, that you would give them courage and confidence to be able to look to you. And remind them to turn their attention to you in the middle of their darkness. We love you, and we pray this in your name. Amen.